All right, guys. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how Nintendo lost their patent. They were trying to patent the game mechanic of being able to summon a creature to fight for you, which is, again, a core mechanic of Pokemon, but also many, many other games.
I was going to say, I could think of a bunch of games that use that same type of thing.
Yeah. And this is, and I actually agree with Kotaku. This is actually patent trolling. Nintendo has been on a tear lately trying to patent certain game mechanics. And in this case, somehow this one got through the USPTO. And then the guy who's in charge took a look at it and said, you know what? No, we're going to take a look at this. Took a look at it. He's like, yeah, we're revoking this. You can't patent that game mechanic. That's absolutely ridiculous. That'd be like if they tried to patent walking from left to right, collecting metal objects in a platform game. That'd be the end of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, right? And if Nintendo could do that, they would do it. If they could patent RPGs, action RPGs, to keep people from competing with Zelda, they would do it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they trying to like retroactively patent things?
Yes.
Like to try to block, Palworld and stuff, but they were going to patent things they didn't patent before to try to argue that it was theirs and stuff like that. And I remember they were doing that too. And we're like, wait, what? Yeah.
So I did a short on this. We're going to delve into it a little bit deeper, but we have been covering the situation with Nintendo. Basically, they were trying to, I think, break Palworld, because Palworld, even though there have been a lot of other Pokemon-like games, Palworld was too damn successful, too damn fast, and then they teamed up with Sony, who is their enemy, right, in the video game space. Now they're talking they're going to do anime and trading cards and all the stuff that Pokemon's doing.
Hey, they could have just... Here's the thing is, when this is coming out, Nintendo and Pokemon could have teamed up with Palworld. They probably could have hired them, used it, because basically why Palworld did so well was because they were doing all the things that everyone wanted from Pokemon, but Nintendo wouldn't flip and do. You guys could have teamed up, could have, bought them out and stuff, but no.
So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo.
This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it's kind of weird doing this video right after we got done singing the praises of the Mario Galaxy movie. And we're going to talk about how awful Nintendo, how awful their legal department is. Right?
It's like Disney, where they're like very litigious and they sue for everything.
Yeah, Nintendo lately, like, I cannot condone half the shit that they're suing people for. They're trying to like literally destroy people who create emulators or have had ROM sites. And I get you have to protect your IP. I get it. But Nintendo is just absolutely over the top. In the case of Palworld, when this game first dropped, it wasn't being marketed by Pocketpair as such, but the gaming journos were all calling it Pokemon with guns, because that's what it looked like. And it was a massive, massive success. If it had not been a success, I don't think we'd be seeing legal action.
Probably not.
But they were talking about they were going to tear through the code and see if any of the source code was Nintendo's. We had these Pokemon stands with Nintendo Brain, with Pokemon Brain, which I talked about earlier today too. They were trying to help Nintendo get Palworld because
they were going to help them get it, because this looks too much like this and this looks too much like that.
So weird. And I'm like, tell me you've never played any of the other Pokemon like games, because there are so many of them. And they've been around for years. They just haven't been that successful, except for like Digimon, Monster Rancher. But I think there's enough of a distinction, and this is an independent company too. So this is a small company, and they're like, oh, we can probably take these guys out with a lawsuit or 5. And so then there's this lawsuit in Japan where Nintendo's got all these, game mechanics copyrighted or trademarked over there. Now the law is different over there, but they tried the same bullshit here in the States, and it's not flying.
No, because you can't. And it was like I said, a lot of it was retroactive. You can't copyright every stupid mechanic you have, because arguably a lot of the stuff came from other places before you had it.
Right. So Kotaku's got an updated article here. Nintendo loses yet another battle in its Pokemon patent trolling. The U.S. Patent Office has rejected one of the vital patent claims in the company's fight against Palworld. So they said their patent number $12,403,397 was inexplicably granted by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office in July of last year, despite its obvious flaws and the ludicrous restrictions it would put on all other game development. It allowed Nintendo to take a company to court for infringement if it created a video game that let the player summon other characters for battle. It really was that broad, going as far as to prevent anyone else from being allowed to summon sub-characters.
But then wouldn't games like Final Fantasy have precedent because they were out before?
Technically, yeah, and I brought that up before. I think people forget that. Final Fantasy 3 was the first Final Fantasy to introduce summoning. And also we had the Dragon Quest games, and we had lots of other games that allowed you to summon characters before Pokemon came out. In fact, you can look at Pokemon, especially the early games, and you can see direct influence from a whole bunch of other games, including Dragon Quest.
Notice how they didn't try to patent stuff and sue them.
Right. They said, so anyone else would not be allowed to make a game where you summon sub-characters, whether for direct or indirect control. It made no sense that 397, as it's known, was granted at the time, and were Nintendo to use it, it could have huge implications across the whole industry. Basically, every RPG, any kind of monster collecting game, would they extend that to fighting games? Well, if you have Street Fighter versus X-Men, or X-Men versus Street Fighter, right? And where you've got your main character, and then you have another character, and in the Marvel versus Capcom games, you have like a sub-character that can be called, you know what I'm saying? So anything like that, technically, if you're going to obey the letter of the law, would not be allowed. Mm-hmm. So,
well, they bring that up here too. They said that the guy who did it should have noticed, because Konami, Namco, Bandai Namco, and even Nintendo had already filed patents in the years past that should have prevented this from even going through.
Yeah, interesting. So this is the guy, this USPTO guy, John A. Squires, and of course they're like, it's Trump's man. He woke up and realized what he'd done. He took a fresh look at it.
What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, right. And today, the beginning stages of getting it off the books are in place. As Games Fray reports, and all credit must go to that site for its relentless reporting, the USPTO has now put out a non-final office action which rejects all claims in the patent.
Good, because it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. The non-final part is important. This isn't over. Nintendo can still appeal. The company has 2 months to do so and can extend that for any reason. But shouldn't the obviously unacceptable nature of the patent prevent success? Well, no, because the patent law is a gruesome mess that no one is paid enough to try to fathom. We actually have a better understanding, I think, than most people, because we actually do have IP, and we've had issues with the trademark office. And
well, I was thinking more trademarks because, there are certain things. This is what it reminds me of. There's certain things you cannot trademark, they wouldn't let Trump trademark "you're fired" for obvious reasons.
Right.
Like you can trademark, we can trademark "CLOWNFISH TV," but we can't trademark just TV or just basic words. You cannot trademark them unless they're used for something else in a certain specific way. And and the reason is to avoid stuff like this, where you own, you're fired or whatever, and then no one else can ever say it ever without giving you money or whatever. You could sue them because it's stupid and ridiculous. And it's kind of like what was going through my head. It's like the trademark equivalent of this to me.
So they said, this came from them looking at Palworld and saying, hey, these characters are too damn similar to ours. They knew that there was little hope of taking it down over claims that it was passing itself off as an authentic Pokemon product, because it's not. They've never made that claim. Actually, it was sites like Kotaku that was calling it, Pokemon with guns, but Pocketpair did not call it Pokemon with guns. It decided to try to file patents after the fact.
Yeah, that's what got me, was after the fact, too.
To claim prior art. But whether it was acting on overconfidence or bad legal advice, few have been impressed by the approach. It actually came to light that Nintendo was suing Pocketpair for just $65,000, and that a number of the patents it was attempting to use in the process were based on amendments and filings made after Palworld came out.
That's why I brought it up at the beginning. I thought a lot of them were after the fact. They were trying to retroactively go back and say, oh, we're going to trademark this now, or want to have the copyright on this now.
Then in October of last year, the Japanese patent office pointed out how dubious all of this was, noting that games like Monster Hunter and Ark featured the mechanics Nintendo was attempting to belatedly claim long before Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out. So actually, I would say if anybody had a right to be angry about Palworld, it would be the people that make Ark, Survival Evolved. Studio escapes me at the moment, but because it's very similar to that. It's basically replacing the dinosaurs with Pokemon-like characters, but it's the same kind of a thing. A lot of crafting and a lot of, with both Japanese and U.S. patent offices looking askance at Nintendo's peculiar desperation to bring down Pocketpair, who, let's not forget, were absolutely baiting Nintendo from the start, it would be the seemly thing for the Mario makers to just sit back and let this one fade away. Sadly, it seems enormously unlikely. No, I think that Nintendo is overreaching, and the danger with this, like I said, if Nintendo is successful in using patents to stop people from making games that use any mechanics that are similar to any, I mean, Nintendo could even be like, nobody else can use a D-pad because we technically invented it.
Yeah, what's going to happen is it's going to destroy everything. It's going to leave everything up to litigation because they own the patent on everything. And the way they are, they probably will. If we see you as competition, well, we're going to take you to court now.
Yeah. They were trying to go after, they were talking about patenting, and this is in Japan, but like being able to locate a hidden character based on where their shadow is. Like they wanted to patent that too. I'm like, this is, like I said, this is ridiculous. If you patent left to right side scroller jumping and collecting coins or metal objects, all the 2D Sonic games are gone.
Yeah, it's definitely overreach.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. They want to be the gatekeepers of the entire industry. Now the new CEO, I think, or president, she comes from a legal background, so I think they're going to be even more litigious than they have been. And every time they do this shit, they just burn more and more goodwill. Every time they try to bankrupt somebody for having ROMs or whatever, or working on emulators, they burn more and more goodwill.
I'm going to argue again. Had they actually made a Pokemon game with what the stuff in it that people kept asking for, then they wouldn't be in this position because Palworld wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah. Because they basically gave players what they wanted. This guy, I think, nails it. This Shin Dean in the comments, he says, if your 30-year-old franchise is so fragile, you think viewers can't tell the difference between a Pokemon and a bear carrying a machine gun, maybe that indicates your franchise isn't really that good. Yeah, I think
most people know the difference.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the same Nintendo that the Pokemon card shop in New York got robbed, and they turned around and made the card shop change their name.
Yes, because it said they didn't like it. It was like infringing or whatever. And
would you like to get robbed again? Because our lawyers are real good at that. Change your name,
basically.
Yeah.
And they only knew about it because it was in the news. But like I was going to say, some of the characters in Palworld, you look at them and you could say, is that a Pokemon character? If you're not somebody who's really familiar with all the Pokemon, because a lot of people know all of them, someone might look at that and be like, is that a Pokemon character or something?
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're definitely differences.
This is funny, though. Anybody says anything about Nintendo in the comments and they're getting downvoted. Like, because these I'm sorry, some of these Pokemon stands are insane. They were literally out there trying to dissect. They were actually manipulating game assets, Palworld game assets, to make them look more like Pokemon to try to help Nintendo. I'm like, I think the multi-billion-dollar video game company has this. I don't think
they're not going to help you.
They're not going to help you.
They're not going to give you a cookie. They're not going to sleep with you.
They're not going to let you have a Pokemon card shop and get the diet too. They call it like Pokestop or something like that. So like, I mean, imagine that, like you're going to all this trouble trying to be like, oh, well, I'm the biggest Nintendo fan ever. I'm the biggest Pokemon fan. I'm going to plow my life savings into opening this Pokemon card shop. And we made the news. We got robbed, and that put us on Nintendo's radar, and they made us change the name of the store because they love us so much. It's like, bitch, they don't care, right? And again, there's a difference, I think, between the people that work on the games and the legal department. Nintendo's legal they are very much the Disney. Actually, I would say in a lot of ways, looking at this shit, they're worse than Disney when it comes to trying to use the law to knock out competitors, or it's lawfare is what it is. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But anyway, there it is. So that's, I guess, kind of a small victory for Palworld. I think Palworld's pretty cool. I think it's a good game.
It's not even just about the fact it's a good game. It's the fact that Nintendo's overreaching, and
they're overreaching.
You're going to have to stop it because it gets to a point that like anything, they can come after anybody for anything because they claim they I licked it, it's mine. Even things that weren't theirs, to begin with, or they got from other places, it's theirs now because they said so. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Some things are just generally recognized as universal mechanics, and you can't, like you said, you can't patent right to left or, all that kind of stuff. It's ridiculous.
And it's so weird, too, because Nintendo, people felt bad for them back in the day because Big Bad Universal, which is ironic, is Universal sued them for using Donkey Kong, and the courts are actually like, well, you can't, like Kong, you can't really trademark it. It's King Kong, Donkey Kong, two different things. It's obvious parody. And people are like, oh, poor Nintendo, Big Bad Universal Pictures is trying to stamp them out and get rid of Donkey Kong machines. And you're fast forward to current year and they're making movies with Donkey Kong.
I was going to say, that's,
by Universal. I'm like, what the hell?
Illuminations is Universal, yeah.
Money talks, right? So we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Please subscribe. We'll talk later.
Bye.